We would always love to acquire a business along with the team and the founder. When that's a possibility, we will always be for that. But a lot of the times, the founders are looking for a clean exit.
Hey WordPressers, I have a question. As you master the day-to-day of running a WordPress product, do you ever find yourself dreaming of a moment where you can pass the business you built on to the next owner? Welcome to the first video of the Gamechangers, a series of talks with makers and shakers behind the biggest WordPress acquisitions in recent years. This series is a must-watch if you're an experienced developer planning to exit in the next 2 to 5 years, or a fresh entrepreneur planning to enter this industry and want to understand the forces governing the WordPress universe. I'm Z from the Freemies team, and this time I'll be chatting with Syed Balkhi, the man who has, apparently, made more acquisitions than he can possibly recall. Today, Syed is going to dive in with us and explain how he runs his processes, including tons of food for thought. Do you feel the consolidation benefits buyers over sellers or vice versa?
It benefits the industry overall because those who are selling the plugins today will probably go back in, likely, and build another cool idea that they have, and they have a lot more experience and a lot more resources to start that. It's also encouraging for those who are not yet involved in the community to see that, hey, there's an opportunity here.
This is Syed Balkhi. If you've been around WordPress long enough, you probably know him as the prodigy who founded WP Beginner in 2009 and who is today the owner of AwesomeMotive, a WordPress business currently powering over 18 million websites. When would you say you realized acquisitions could be a growth strategy for AwesomeMotive?
You know, in the early days, I'll be honest, we didn't see acquisition as a growth strategy. We saw it as filling the success gaps that our users were telling us, right? So every year I would ask the users, if you could have us build one thing, what would it be? And they would tell us what they want us to build, and we would look at, okay, can we build this, or can we buy something to serve the need that our audience is telling us that exists?
Although Syed recently took the ecosystem by surprise with his acquisition of Sandals Development in September 2021, his first notable acquisition was Monster Insights, which took place in 2016. You previously mentioned that acquisition came to you as a surprise?
Yes, exactly. So Yost and I started chatting over Skype. He reached out and we were like, oh, this would be a perfect. And we ended up making a deal.
In those days, Syed's company had not made any significant plugin acquisitions, and their choice to acquire an analytics plugin from Yoast was made solely due to its alignment with Syed's existing products. This was way before Syed realized AwesomeMotive could begin making acquisitions as a strategy in itself.
I would say probably around 2018 when we started really looking at acquisitions as a serious growth strategy, instead of just a alignment strategy. And even now, we don't just buy or acquire plugins for the sake of acquiring. That's not our interest. We are strategic acquirer. We look at solutions that will serve our audience, and then we tend to align ourselves with that.
What changed in 2018?
We were all the existing businesses that we had at the time were doing really well, and we learn a lot from our mistakes, right? We made tons and tons of mistakes. I think that gives us a leg up, right? For anybody who's starting today, haven't made the same mistakes that we have. That's just, the nature of the beast. The more you fall, the more you learn how not to fall, kind of thing. So we had, kind of developed this playbook and saying, okay, look, if we don't do this, and do this and that, we generally tend to do quite well.
So in 2018, AwesomeMotive recognized that they could leverage the experience they had to begin making acquisitions systematically for the purpose of growth. That year, Syed acquired the Google Analytics dashboard for WordPress and rebranded it to Exact Metrics. He acquired Pirate Forms only to later retire it in favor of AwesomeMotive's competing WP Forms plugin, and then he acquired SeedProd, all in 2018. There's no doubt that this change in strategy was made possible by the fact that AwesomeMotive now had much deeper pockets. But still, investing in software isn't like investing in brick and mortar, and acquisitions can be very risky. So to maintain that level of success, some savvy decisions would need to be made.
You really only have to have one thesis, maybe two, right? One or two good insights into an industry, and you can make that opportunity be lucrative.
What's an example for a thesis in your case?
In our case, we look at user experience, right? So we look at, is this, who is this product built for? And most of the time, the answer is everyone, and it shouldn't be. So we will naturally say, okay, we will pick a market and just target that and not target everybody else and optimize the user experience around that. And we find there's a lot of opportunity that exists in that realm in WordPress.
So, after an acquisition is made by AwesomeMotive, the acquired products will go through a process of rebranding to target a specific market and are then adjusted on all levels, including code, user interface, user experience, so that the product is perfectly compatible with the selected audience's needs. Could you give me an example of how you work with the plugin that aligns with your portfolio?
I'm very excited about what we're doing at All-in-One SEO. We acquired it in 2020 in January, right before COVID, right? So, but the product needed a lot of love. We ended up rewriting the whole product, gut it and rewrite it, and give it the foundation so we can build more powerful features. And so that rewrite took about 10, 11 months or so.
So instead of building their own version of the product, they buy an existing product and then spend the next 11 months rewriting it? How does this make sense financially?
What you're buying is a brand. You're buying the community. You're buying the customer base. You're buying the active installs. You're buying all of that. You're buying a business. I would say the code base is, it's okay.
What Syed is saying here is that there may be various aspects of a business that make it attractive for acquiring. And once it's acquired, it's subjected to significant adjustments to fit in with his portfolio. Now, this is an important point for founders who are less experienced in the acquisition space. When you round up a bunch of buyers interested in your business, each and every buyer will be interested in your business for a different reason. This is something that may deeply impact the value of your offering in the eyes of each buyer and further impact what they do with the business after they acquire it. So how do you take into account the context of your portfolio when you work with a new acquired product? Can you give me an example?
So a good example would be WP Forms and WP Mail SMTP. Instead of building a SMTP layer inside the WP Forms, I felt that you should only have one SMTP solution on your site that takes care of all the things, whether it is your WooCommerce receipt, whether it is your membership site receipts or anything like that, or your contact form emails, etc. So instead of baking that SMTP functionality in and then forcing the user to have tons of conflict with other SMTP solutions, we went out and acquired the most popular SMTP solution in WordPress at the time, which was WP Mail SMTP. I believe it was running on 600,000 websites at that time. Another example would be Monster Insights, right? So Monster Insights does tracking for, helps make Google Analytics easy, right? So if you install Google Analytics on your site, you don't have all the advanced things like event tracking, form conversion tracking, etc. So now we can say, okay, well, if you are running WP Forms and Monster Insights, your form conversion tracking is going to be seamless. It'll be done. You don't have to add any additional event tracking on your form fields, right? Or if you're using MemberPress and using Monster Insights, now you can set up enhanced e-commerce tracking with really no click. Activate the add-on and it works seamlessly. So, we do try to make our products work seamlessly together to offer a set of solutions for our users that just works.
So let's talk about modifications you make to a business after acquisition. Would you prefer, in the case of a product business that has a team, would you prefer staying with the team, with the founder, or would you prefer acquiring the assets without the team?
We would always love to acquire a business along with the team and the founder. When that's a possibility, we will always prefer that. But a lot of the times, the founders are looking for a clean exit. For example, when we acquired Monster Insights, the team at Yoast wanted to focus entirely on their SEO product. So there was nothing involved. They were like, hey, we just want to get rid of the product. No team is going to be part of it. And we were okay with that. When we acquired Pushengage, there was a pretty large team there, and we took in the whole team, and the founder wanted to leave. So the founder ended up stepping out about 3 months in. When we acquired All-in-One SEO, again, there was a team there, very lean and small team, but Michael wanted an exit because he'd been doing this since 2007. So he was able to step out in 14 days.
What about the cases of like a smaller business? Will you ever acquire a business or a product for the idea of the product, like the concept or the functionality? Or
we just most recently acquired Plugin Rank, which is a SaaS application that helps WordPress plugin authors track the rankings of how their WordPress plugin is ranking in WordPress search. If you think about it, that the TAM, the total addressable market for that, is very small, right? It is premium WordPress plugin developers. So we didn't acquire that product for the revenue. We primarily acquired it because of the solutions that it offers, and how powerful it is. We had that tool internally, and it wasn't as good as what Ian had built at Plugin Rank. And I want to build upon it. And, this was a side project for Ian. So, I was like, well, dude, I want to put more resources towards it because it could be an internal tool for us, and the rest of the community gets to use it as we build upon it.
Now, specifically in the case of Plugin Rank, there is a big difference between an early stage SaaS application like Plugin Rank and an early stage GPL plugin. Because in the case of a GPL plugin, you'd just be able to fork that code and use it yourself, right? So for those of you in the early stages of developing a GPL product, you might want to double check your chances of making a super quick exit. A lot of acquirers at your scale would typically be uninterested in businesses with small TAM, small revenue. Why would you say you're different?
There are some buyers who are just EBITDA buyers, right? They look at what your revenues are and they're buying revenue. That's not us, right? We definitely look at businesses with high revenues, but for us the most important part is, does it align with what we're doing, right? Does it help small businesses grow and compete with the big guys? Right? And if it does, then we will make an offer, even if the business is relatively small or have little to no revenue.
What would you say are the most common mistakes founders make in the acquisition process?
I would say not understanding the terms of the deal, right? Focusing too much on the valuation. One of the things I learned early from my mentor is, you name the price, I name the terms, I will always win. When you're dealing with a large private equity company, publicly traded company, or huge company, they have a full-blown M&A team who've done this numerous times over and over again, and a lot of times they know how to put terms in that can be tricky.
One typical case of what tricky means is the example of an earnouts model, a case in which the seller may say, okay, I'll buy this business from you for 100K if it maintains its growth over the course of 3 years. Having this term means you only get part of your cash up front and receive additional installments over time as you hit predetermined milestones. So if the business you sell to this buyer for allegedly 100K declines in revenue over the course of 3 years, you may end up earning much, much less from your anticipated value.
So you will need to make sure that the terms are straightforward. Really pay attention to the terms, even more so than the valuation itself, because if there's a complicated earnout structure, there is a potential that you may not get it. Evaluation is important, very important, but the terms are even more important, and you need to make sure you get the right term.
How likely is it as a first-time seller that I'll be offered something like an earnout structure?
It really depends on the buyer and what you're looking for. So of course, as a seller, your first preference should be cash only deals, because that guarantees everything, right? And in my experience, all the advice I've seen, have seen from founders exiting, the more cash you get up front, the better it is, because that is guaranteed. A lot of times, if you're selling to a much larger company or entity like a private equity fund or private equity backed company, you would see some sort of structure where you get X amount of cash up front, and then the rest are earnouts. I will tell you that every single deal that we do are 100% cash. And that's why founders prefer our deals, because I've been approached by many companies and I've seen the process of how it goes, and it's a pretty crappy process for a seller to go through. So we try to make our process very smooth and offer cash only deals. But when I've seen and looked and advised in other deals that have closed in the WordPress industry where a different company acquired the plugin instead of us, and majority of the time those deals have terms, and some portion of that payment is not guaranteed.
So say I get a tempting offer and I see it has a complicated earnout structure. What do I do next?
Is it, if you're exiting right now, what's your goal? Are you, exiting and then working for 2 years or 3 years at the same company that you built, you're probably better off keeping the company yourself and then selling, 3 years later. So yeah, but like that's a personal decision that you as a entrepreneur have to make. But be really rigid about how much cash you get up front, or try to get as much as you can up front, because that's guaranteed.
So what other mistakes do you see founders making? Are there any red flags that turn you off completely from making the acquisition?
There's some big red flags when the numbers are inflated. If the founders don't have their numbers right and it's a messy situation, that becomes a red flag. So really important for you to keep your finances clean, not muddle too much into it. Make sure you're paying your taxes and all those things. If you come and tell me, well, we have an entity that we just stopped paying taxes on because we didn't care for it, that's a red flag. It's like make sure that you have your documents in order, the tax documents, your finances and everything. If things don't match up, things don't align, and there's like massive discrepancy, like a little bit of discrepancy could be a human error. Massive discrepancies usually are big red flags, and we tend to avoid those scenarios. Believe it or not, we have seen those.
Coming from someone in Syed's position, this advice is invaluable. But to go even further, I asked him to share a step-by-step breakdown of a typical AwesomeMotive acquisition process. Okay, let's start from the top then. Do you actively pursue acquisitions, or do they come to you organically due to your position in the community?
It's a little bit of both, actually. When I announced the WP Beginner Growth Fund, that was really a first experiment, putting out a blog post and seeing what kind of interest it generates. That led to us building a partnership, investing in MemberPress and the portfolio of products there, formidable forms, and then acquiring SeedProd, which is now a full-blown landing page builder. When we acquired it, it was just a coming soon plugin. Now it's a drag and drop landing page builder. So that was putting out a blog post and seeing what it does. Depending on the acquisition, sometimes, I'm actively pursuing it because it's a strategic fit for our audience. Other times, because of our known position and our reputation, plugin owners just reach out to us directly.
Okay, so say I'm a business owner looking to make my first exit. How do I reach out to you? Do I do it directly? Would you perform a warm intro from someone in your network? A
lot of times people will get an introduction to me because we have mutual contact. There's a form on, if you go to wpbeginner.com and you scroll down to the footer, there's a form called Growth Fund, and you go there and you can literally fill that out. I literally got an email yesterday from that. Or you can go to my personal blog. I'm available in Slack, so post status Slack if you're a post status member, or the WordPress official Slacks. If you're in the WordPress Slack, you can reach me there. Yeah, anyway, you can reach out to me directly, but the most efficient way probably would be to do the Growth Fund form on WP Beginner.
Doing this, what would you expect me to prepare in advance?
That's why that page is quite important, because it asks all the right questions that I would want to know. Where's your company registered? What's your revenue size range? How big the team is? Do you have existing investors? Do you have co-founders? It gives me a level of insight that I would need to hop on a call and make the call productive.
So say we go through with the deal. What's the next step? Do we sign an NDA? Is there an LOI?
Yeah. Typically, you sign an NDA just to make the seller feel more comfortable sharing some of the information, confidential information, because we do need to know the P&Ls and how the business is operating. We definitely want to see last 3 years worth of data. We want to see what your churn is like. A lot of times, though, some of these metrics the founders don't know. So we'll say, okay, well, if you grant us analyst access to your cart software, whether it is EDD, whether it is Stripe, we would be able to export the data and do the number crunching ourselves, or you can just give us those reports so we can do the number crunching. So we try to make the process easy for the founders so they don't have to go hire an accounting firm, waste a bunch of money for no reason. But we do want to see what's the growth rate, what's the breakdown of sales by plan that they have, what's the churn. We're doing some cohort analysis there, and then after that is the LOI. So we do a LOI term sheet, and we can do closing pretty fast. So once the LOI is signed, about 3 weeks, maybe 4, and we have the deal closed.
Looking back at our call, there's no doubt Syed is a super smart, super charismatic figure. And there's no wonder he's such a trend leader. But let's recap and see what's in it for you as a business owner. It basically boils down to 3 main points. First of all, we've seen that Syed presents a unique hands-on approach to acquisitions, meaning not only will he make financially feasible acquisitions, but acquisitions followed by deep modifications that align the acquired product with the AwesomeMotive portfolio. This means he isn't only looking for what he can earn from the product, but what he can make out of it. The second point is, Syed has all means necessary to run a full valuation of your business based on what he's looking to gain from the acquisition. So the process is streamlined and moves forward fast. The third point is, being acquired by AwesomeMotive seems like an especially exciting opportunity if you stick with them, like in the case of selling your business and becoming an AwesomeMotive product leader. This will likely provide an opportunity to learn a whole lot more about running your business than you would have had you continued on your own. And I want to share something related to this point that Syed and I didn't mention on our call. AwesomeMotive runs an Accelerator program you can apply to, where if selected, first of all obviously means they believe in your product, but technically speaking, they will come in and invest in your business by buying ownership of an agreed portion of your company, starting from 30% at the lowest, and help you grow your product, grow your business, grow your revenue with the support of a whole team of AwesomeMotive experts and the WP Beginners distribution channel. So in comparison to just selling your business entirely or keeping it to yourself entirely, this is an option that will enable founders to enjoy some of both worlds. So that if, for example, you're keeping 60% of your ownership and the value of your business then doubles, triples, or more over a course of a few years, that is a win-win situation for everyone. To wrap things up, what would you say is the most important piece of advice you can give founders making an exit for the first time?
Understand your motivations of why you're looking to exit. That's very important. A lot of times people fantasy the idea of exiting, and then when it starts becoming a reality, then starts having second thoughts. So I would say really write down why you're looking to exit and what do you wish to accomplish from it, because that will help you make a better decision, have a clearer mindset, because when things start moving, it moves really fast, and if you're not prepared for it, you will easily get overwhelmed. So because it's a very big decision, sometimes can be a very life-changing decision. You need to really have a clear mind, know exactly what you want from it, so you are not confused in the middle of the process. You're not having second thoughts. You're ready to make that decision, because ultimately it's about your happiness, and you need to feel happy after the deal is done and not have any regrets, because life is too short to have regrets. And whatever you're building, you've built something amazing if somebody else is looking to acquire it. So be happy.
Thanks for watching this chapter of the Gamechangers. In the next episode, I'll be hosting Eric Danzer, the man behind WordPress's most popular gallery plugin, NextGen Gallery. Eric will show us how to easily calculate the value of your business and share some tips and best practices on making the most of your WordPress exit. As usual, feel free to subscribe and hit that bell icon down there so you don't miss the next video.